The Great Atlas of the Velari archivists was the single most valuable object in the galaxy. Not the most valuable ship, not the most valuable weapon, not the most valuable technology, the most valuable object, full stop, no competition, no comparison, no debate. It had taken 417 years to complete. 17 generations of Velari cartographers, surveyors, astrometricians, and deep-range operatives had devoted their lives to its construction. They had mapped every star within 90,000 light-years of the galactic core. Every planet, every moon, every asteroid belt, every resource deposit, every gravitational anomaly, every electromagnetic signature. 417 years, 12 billion individual survey points, a data set so large that it required a dedicated artificial intelligence just to store and index it. The atlas occupied a physical space the size of a small moon, not because the data required that much hardware, but because the Velari believed that knowledge of this magnitude deserved a monument. Every major civilization in the galaxy used the atlas, trade routes were planned with it, military strategies were built around it, scientific research was guided by it. To possess a copy of the atlas was to possess a map of reality itself. The Velari distributed copies freely. Knowledge they believed was sacred, withholding it was a sin. But there was one section of the atlas that was not distributed freely. One section that was blank. A region of space approximately 800 light-years in diameter, located in the Orion Spur. On the atlas it appeared as a white void. No stars, no planets, no labels, no data, nothing. As if that portion of the galaxy did not exist. The Velari called it the exclusion zone. They did not explain why it was excluded. They did not allow questions about it. For 300 years, the rest of the galaxy had wondered. The Torathi Consortium was the first to challenge the exclusion zone. Not militarily, diplomatically. The Torathi were merchants, traders, exploiters of opportunity. An 800 light-year region of unmapped space represented an incalculable amount of potential resources. Mineral deposits, habitable worlds, trade routes, all sitting there, unclaimed, unexploited, waiting for whoever was bold enough to take them. Ambassador Krenval stood before the Velari High Council and made his case. The exclusion zone contains an estimated 400 million stars, he said. Even at conservative estimates, that represents trillions of units of raw resources. The consortium is prepared to fund a full survey expedition. We will share all data with the archivists. The zone will be mapped. The atlas will be complete. Everyone benefits. The Velari Council did not respond immediately. Councillor Methron, the eldest living archivist, leaned forward on her support structure. Her body was ancient, fragile. Her sensory organs had dimmed with age, but her mind remained sharp, sharper than any in the council. Ambassador, she said, the exclusion zone is excluded for a reason. Then share the reason. No. Krenval had expected this response. He had prepared for it. Counselor, the Torathi Consortium represents 712 trading worlds. We contribute 14% of the Atlas maintenance budget. We have supported the archivists for 3 centuries. We are not asking for military secrets. We are asking for transparency. Methron studied him with dim eyes. You are asking to enter a place that the Velari have forbidden entry to for 400 years, a place that we mapped, and then deliberately erased. The chamber went quiet. The Torathi delegation exchanged glances. This was new information. The official Velari position had always been that the zone was unmapped. Insufficient survey data, a bureaucratic gap, not a deliberate erasure. You mapped it, Krenval said slowly, and then you erased it. Oh yes. Why? Methron was silent for a long time. When she spoke, her voice carried a weight that Krenval had never heard from a Velari before. Because what we found in that region was not ours to share. It was not yours to find. And if you are wise, ambassador, you will leave it alone. Krenval returned to the consortium with this answer. The consortium leadership debated for 6 months. Some argued for caution. The Velari were not given to fear. If they had erased a region of the Atlas, the reason must be extraordinary. Others argued that the Velari were hoarding resources, that the exclusion zone contained something valuable and the Velari wanted it for themselves. This faction pointed to the Velari's reputation for altruism and called it a mask. No species was truly selfless. The Velari were hiding something. The consortium should find out what. The debate ended when the Sorani Imperium announced its own expedition. The Sorani were not merchants, they air warriors, a militaristic species that had conquered 3 neighboring civilizations in the past 2 centuries. They did not ask permission, they did not debate, they announced and then they acted. 70 Sorani warships, 400,000 soldiers, commanded by Warlord Tethkurin, a veteran of 12 conquest campaigns. The Velari sent a single message to the Sorani Imperium. Do not enter the exclusion zone. The Sorani did not respond. The Velari sent a second message. Enter the exclusion zone and you will not return. The Sorani did not respond to that one either. 70 warships entered the exclusion zone on a Tuesday by the Galactic Standard Calendar. They were never seen again. The Sorani fleet disappeared on a Tuesday. By Wednesday, the Imperium was demanding answers. By Thursday, they were threatening war. By Friday, the entire galaxy knew that something inside the exclusion zone had destroyed 70 Sorani warships without leaving a trace. No debris, no distress signals, no escape pods, no energy signatures, nothing. 70 ships and 400,000 soldiers had entered the zone and simply ceased to exist, as if they had been erased from the universe. The Velari High Council released a single public statement. We warned them. That was it, 4 words, no explanation, no apology, no elaboration. The galaxy erupted. The Torathi Consortium immediately suspended all plans for an expedition. The Meridian Free States, a loose alliance of independent worlds, closed their borders. The Kulthari Biosphere Collective went into voluntary isolation. Every major civilization in the galaxy reacted with the same instinct. Of fear. Not of the exclusion zone itself, of whatever was inside it. The Velari had mapped the galaxy, 400 million stars, 12 billion survey points, 417 years of work. And in all that time, in all those stars, the Velari had found exactly one region of space that frightened them enough to erase it from the most complete map ever created. One region. One species. Because by now, everyone knew what lived in the exclusion zone. The Velari had never said the name. They had never needed to. The zone's location was public knowledge. It corresponded to a region of space that emitted a faint but detectable radio signature. A signature that had been present for approximately 300 years. A signature that every civilization in the galaxy had detected and dismissed as the noise of a developing world. Humanities. The humans had been classified as a pre-warp emerging species by every major civilization's survey protocols. Unremarkable, primitive. A minor biological curiosity on a nondescript planet in an unremarkable system, not worth contacting, not worth studying, not worth fearing. But the Velari had studied them. The Velari had mapped their space. The Velari had seen something that had caused them to erase 400 million stars from the greatest work of their civilization. And then the Sorani had walked into that erased space and vanished. Krenval sat in his office on the consortium's capital world and stared at a star map. The exclusion zone glowed white on the display. a wound in the fabric of the known galaxy, 800 light-years across, containing a species that the entire galaxy had dismissed as negligible. He thought about the Sorani, 70 warships, 400,000 soldiers, Teth Curin who had conquered 3 civilizations, gone, all of them without a trace. He thought about the Velari, 400 years of mapping, 12 billion data points, the most comprehensive survey in galactic history, and they had looked at human space and chosen to pretend it did not exist. He thought about the radio signals, 300 years of leakage from a developing world. Faint, unstructured, the noise of a species learning to use electricity, that was what every civilization had assumed. But what if it was not noise? What if it was a broadcast? What if the humans had been transmitting something for 300 years, and everyone else had been too arrogant to listen? Krenval activated his secure communication terminal. He coded a message to the only person he trusted to understand. Dr. Ilarisen, former chief xenocontactologist for the Valeri archivists, dismissed from her position 47 years ago for requesting access to the erased Atlas data. She now lived in exile on a fringe world, unemployed, unpersoned, forgotten by everyone except Krenval, who had been her student 30 years ago. Well, the message was short. I need to know what you found. Meet me at coordinates null 7. The response came 11 minutes later. I have been waiting 47 years for someone to ask. Coordinates null 7 was an abandoned mining station in an uninhabited system. No traffic, no surveillance, no records, a place where 2 people could talk without being observed. Okay. Renval's shuttle docked with the station's only functional airlock. The interior was cold, dark. The air recyclers hummed at minimum capacity. He made his way to the central operations deck and found Dr. Ilarisen waiting for him. She was old. Velari aged differently than most species. Their bodies grew lighter, more translucent as their internal structures thinned. Ilarisen was so thin that Krenval could see the glow of her internal organs through her skin, but her eyes were bright, sharp, angry. "Oh, you came," she said. "Oh, you said you were waiting." I had begun to think no one would come. Krenval sat across from her. The Sorani are gone. As I know. 70 warships. As I know. What is in the exclusion zone, Doctor? Ilarisen was quiet for a long time. She reached into a compartment in the wall and withdrew a data crystal. Old, scratched. The kind of storage medium that had not been manufactured in a century. This is a copy of the original Atlas data for the exclusion zone, she said, before the erasure. I made it 47 years ago before the Council discovered my access and removed me. Krenval stared at the crystal. You kept a copy. I risked my career, my reputation, my life. I kept a copy because I believed that the galaxy deserved to know what the Velari found in human space. I still believe that. She placed the crystal on the table between them. But I will tell you what is on it first, so you understand what you are holding. Krenval did not touch the crystal. Tell me. Ilarisen leaned back. 417 years ago, the Velari Mapping Initiative reached the Orion Spur. Standard procedure. Long-range survey first, then close-range probes, then on-site verification. The Orion Spur was unremarkable. Thousands of star systems. No signs of advanced civilization. We logged the data and moved on. She paused. But the close-range probes returned anomalous readings from one specific system. Sol, third planet. The readings suggested an energy signature far beyond what a pre-industrial civilization should produce. The survey team flagged it for follow-up and continued their work. What kind of energy signature? Spectral, the planet was emitting light across frequencies that should not have been generated by natural processes or primitive technology. The survey team assumed instrument error. They recalibrated. The signature persisted. How big was the discrepancy? Ularisen looked at him. The energy output of the third planet was approximately 4 orders of magnitude higher than our models predicted for a species at their stage of development. 4 orders. That is a factor of 10,000. Krenval said nothing. The survey team sent a dedicated probe to investigate, a stealth probe, undetectable by any known technology. It entered the Sol system, approached the third planet, and began detailed scanning. What it found did not match any known model of civilization development. She pulled up a holographic display from her own equipment, a planet diagram, blue and white, familiar. The planet appeared primitive on the surface. Cities, roads, limited orbital infrastructure, radio emissions consistent with early technological development, everything the long-range surveys had suggested. Oh, but under the surface, and I mean that literally, below the crust of the planet, the probe detected massive cavities, artificial, extending down to the mantle, connected by tunnel networks that circumnavigated the entire planet. Inside those cavities, the probe found industry, manufacturing, energy generation, all hidden, all shielded, all operating at a level of sophistication that exceeded Velari technology in several key areas. Krenval felt his breathing change, a hidden civilization under the surface. Not just under the surface. The probe detected similar structures on the fourth planet, the fifth planet's moons, the asteroid belt. The humans had built an underground empire that spanned their entire system, and they had concealed it so perfectly that only a dedicated stealth probe operating at close range could detect it. How long had it been theirs? Olarasen closed the display. Based on the construction patterns and material aging, the estimate was approximately 200 years. The humans had been building their hidden infrastructure for 2 centuries while presenting a primitive face to the universe. Krenval looked at the data crystal. That is why the Velari erased the data. That is the beginning of why, Alarasen said, it gets worse. The probe remained in the Sol system for 11 days, Alarasen continued. During that time, it mapped the full extent of the human hidden infrastructure, the underground cities, the asteroid belt factories. The deep space sensor arrays all of it. She paused. On the 9th day, the probe detected a launch. Krenval waited. A single vessel, small, unarmed as far as T. He probe could determine. It launched from the third planet and traveled to a point in the asteroid belt where the humans had a facility. The probe followed at extreme range. It observed the vessel dock with the facility. Routine, unremarkable. Oh, then what? Then, on the 11th day, the probe received a transmission. Olarasen's voice changed. The anger faded. Something older replaced it. Something that sounded like wonder mixed with dread. The transmission was not directed at the probe. It was directed at a point in empty space. But the probe's receivers captured it. The content of the transmission was a single message, repeated in a mathematical language that any spacefaring species could decode. What did it say? Olarasen looked at Krenval with eyes that had held this secret for 47 years. It said, "We know you are there. We have known since you arrived. You have 11 hours to leave our system. If you leave, we will not follow. If you do not leave, you will not leave." Krenval felt the air in the station change. They detected the stealth probe. The stealth probe that was undetectable by any known technology. Yes, they detected it, they tracked it, they allowed it to observe for 11 days, and then they told it to leave. The probe left. The probe left. It transmitted its data back to Velari space and then self-destructed, as per its protocol. The data arrived at the archivist headquarters 3 months later. Alara Sen stood. Her thin body moved slowly, carefully, as if any sudden motion might break something irreparable. The Velari Council reviewed the data in closed session. I was a junior analyst at the time. I was not permitted in the session, but I had access to the raw data before it was classified. I read it, all of it, and I made my copy before they erased it. What did the council do? They sent a delegation, not a military force. A diplomatic delegation, 12 archivists, the most senior members of the council. They traveled to the Sol system in an unarmed vessel. They broadcast their approach on all frequencies. They announced their intentions. They asked for dialogue. And the delegation entered the Sol system. They were met by a single human vessel. They were escorted to the third planet. They landed. They met with human representatives. The meeting lasted 14 hours. Alarisen walked to the station's cracked viewport. Outside, stars burned in the void. The delegation returned to Velari space 4 days later. They were changed, all 12 of them. I saw them. I knew some of them personally. Counselor Methron was among them. She was young then, bright, ambitious. When she returned, she was none of those things. She was afraid. What did the humans tell them? Ilarisen turned from the viewport. The delegation never spoke publicly about what happened in that meeting, never, not once in the 400 years since. The council sealed the transcript, classified it at the highest level, made it inaccessible to everyone except council members. Oh, you read the transcript. Ilarisen nodded slowly. I was a junior analyst. I should not have had access, but the classification systems were new. There were gaps. I found the transcript in an unindexed archive 7 years after the meeting. I read it, and I understood why they had erased the zone from the atlas. She returned to the table, sat down, placed her hands flat on the surface. The humans told the Velari delegation that they had known about extraterrestrial life for over 200 years. They had been monitoring every civilization in the galaxy. They had mapped our territories, our trade routes, our military capabilities, our scientific achievements. They knew everything about us. Everything. Everything. They knew the Velari better than the Velari knew themselves. They knew the population of every Velari world, the output of every Velari factory, the content of every Velari broadcast. They had been listening, watching, analyzing for 2 centuries. Krenval felt the station around him seem smaller. They were spying on us. No, they were studying us. There is a difference. Spying implies secrecy. The humans were not secret. They were simply invisible because no one was looking for them. No one thought a pre-industrial species could pose any threat. No one thought to check if the radio leakage from Sol was real or manufactured. No one questioned the narrative. Alara Sen leaned forward. The humans told the Velari delegation that they had chosen to remain hidden, deliberately, intentionally. They had built their civilization underground, concealed their true capabilities, and presented a false face to the galaxy. They had done this because they were not ready to reveal themselves. Not ready for what? For what they had become. Krenval took 3 hours to process what Alarisen had told him. He walked the corridors of the abandoned stadi. He stared at the stars through cracked viewports. He tried to reconcile what he had heard with everything he thought he knew about the galaxy. The humans were not primitive. They had not been primitive for centuries. They had built a hidden civilization of extraordinary sophistication while the rest of the galaxy dismissed them as negligible. They had watched. They had listened. They had learned. And then they had told the Velari to leave. Not attacked, not threatened, told politely, firmly, with a deadline. Krenval returned to the operations deck. Alarisen had not moved. She sat exactly where he had left her, as if she had been carved from the station's own metal. What did they become? He asked. Ilarisen activated the data crystal. A new holographic display appeared, not the planet diagram from before, something else. A fleet roster, ship classifications, production numbers, dates. After the Valari delegation left, the humans accelerated their program, she said. They had been building in secret for 2 centuries. The Valari visit told them something important, that someone had noticed them, that their hiding was not perfect, that they needed to finish whatever they were doing before the rest of the galaxy came looking. How do you know this? Because the Valari did not stop watching. The Council may have erased the zone from the Atlas, but they did not ignore it. They maintained a secret monitoring program, long-range sensors, passive only, never entering the zone but watching for 400 years. She expanded the fleet roster. The numbers filled the display, column after column, ship classes, tonnage, crew complements, weapon systems, production dates. This is the human fleet as of 47 years ago, when I was removed from the archivists and lost access to the monitoring data. These numbers are 47 years old. Krenval read the first column, his breath stopped. Total active vessels, 4,217,000. Over 4 million ships. That cannot be correct, he said. It is correct. 4,217,000 active warships, built in underground shipyards in asteroid belt facilities, on moons that the rest of the galaxy had never scanned closely enough to notice, 47 years ago. And now, Lara Sen shook her head. I do not know. If their production rates continued at the same pace, the number today would be approximately. She calculated. At 12 million minimum, possibly more. 12 million warships. The combined military fleets of every known civilization in the galaxy totaled approximately 800,000. The humans had 15 times that number, hidden in a region of space that everyone had agreed to ignore. What about the Sorani? Krenval asked. 70 warships, how did they disappear without a trace? Ilarisen pulled up another file, signal analysis data. The Valari monitoring program detected the Sorani fleet's entry into the zone. They also detected the human response. It took 4 minutes. 4 minutes. 4 minutes from Sorani entry to complete elimination. The humans deployed a weapon we have never seen before, an area effect device that generates a field within which matter simply stops, atoms freeze, molecular bonds lock, everything within the field becomes static, immovable, inert. The Sorani ships did not explode, did not break apart, they just stopped. And then the humans towed them away. Towed them away. Yes, the field is not destructive, it is preservative. The humans captured 70 warships and 400,000 soldiers without killing any of them. They simply froze them in place and removed them. Krenval sat down heavily. They are alive, the Sorani. As far as we know, the humans do not kill unless they choose to. That was made clear in the original delegation meeting. The transcript includes a statement from the human representative. Direct quote. She pulled up the transcript, highlighted a single line. We do not destroy what we can preserve. We do not fight what we can redirect. We do not kill what we can contain. We have had enough of killing among ourselves. We will not extend that habit to the stars. Krenval read the line 3 times. They are pacifists, he said. No, they are not pacifists. They are something much more dangerous. They are a species that has outgrown war among themselves and has decided to apply that lesson to the rest of the galaxy. They will not start a fight, but they will end one, quickly, efficiently, without hesitation. Alara Sen closed the display. The Valari understood this. 400 years ago, the delegation returned and told the council what the humans had said. The council understood that the humans were not a threat to be fought, they were a force to be respected or avoided. The council chose avoidance. They erased the zone from the atlas. They established the exclusion policy. They told no one why. And for 400 years it worked. For 400 years no one entered the zone. No one challenged the exclusion. The galaxy forgot about humanity, dismissed them, ignored them, exactly as the humans wanted. Until the Sorani. Until the Sorani, who ignored the warning, who entered the zone, who discovered what 400 years of ignorance had hidden. Krenval looked at the data crystal. What do we do with this? Alarisen stood. You take it to the consortium. You take it to every civilization that will listen. You tell them the truth, that the exclusion zone is not a blank space on a map. It is a quarantine, not to keep humanity in, to keep everyone else out. And if no one listens? Alarisen walked toward the airlock. At the threshold she stopped. Then the next civilization that enters the zone will disappear just like the Sorani, and the one after that, and the one after that, until the humans decide that the galaxy has learned its lesson, or until the galaxy learns it on its own. She stepped through the airlock. The humans left themselves off the map, ambassador, not because they did not belong on it, because they did not trust the species that made it. Ask yourself why. The airlock sealed behind her. Krenval brought the data crystal to the consortium leadership. They did not believe him. Not at first. The numbers were too large, the implications too extreme. A hidden civilization of 12 million warships operating in plain sight for 4 centuries, undetected by every survey system in the galaxy. It sounded like a Velari deception, a fabrication designed to keep everyone out of a resource-rich region. Krenval expected this. He had prepared. He broadcast the data on open frequencies. Every civilization in the galaxy received it. The original Atlas data, the probe transcripts, the delegation records, the fleet estimates, the Sorani elimination analysis, everything. The reaction was not what he expected. Most civilizations dismissed it. A hoax, a conspiracy, an attempt by the Torathi Consortium to monopolize the exclusion zone by scaring away competitors. The Velari said nothing. Their silence was taken as confirmation by some and as denial by others. The Sorani Imperium was the exception. The Sorani had lost 70 warships. They could not dismiss the data. They could not pretend it was a hoax. Their soldiers were gone. Their fleet was diminished. Their pride was shattered. Warlord Tethkurin's successor, Warlord Drenvas, requested a meeting with the Velari High Council. The request was granted. No record of that meeting was ever released. But 3 days after the meeting, the Sorani Imperium did something unprecedented. They publicly acknowledged the exclusion zone. They confirmed the loss of their fleet. They confirmed that the humans had destroyed their ships without firing a conventional weapon. And they announced that the Sorani Imperium would never enter the zone again. The announcement shook the galaxy. If the Sorani admitted it, it was real. The Sorani did not admit weakness. They did not acknowledge defeat. They did not back down, except they had. The other civilizations began to pay attention. The Meridian Free States launched an independent verification program. They aimed their most powerful sensors at the exclusion zone boundary. They detected nothing, empty space, background radiation, the normal signatures of an uninhabited galaxy. But one technician, running a new analysis algorithm designed to detect statistical anomalies in background radiation, found something. The pattern. Not in the radiation itself, in the absence of radiation. A region within the zone where the background noise was slightly too uniform, too perfect, as if something was generating a false signal to mask what lay beneath. The technician reported the finding. The Free State's leadership reviewed it. They aimed every sensor they had at the anomaly. They pushed their equipment to maximum resolution. Beneath the false signal, they detected structures. Millions of them, arranged in a geometric pattern that stretched across light years. Not random, not organic, designed. A lattice of constructions, each one transmitting a masking signal that contributed to the overall illusion of empty space. The humans had built a camouflage network that covered 800 light years. Not just their planet, not just their system, their entire region of space. 800 light-years of artificial emptiness generated by millions of hidden transmitters designed to make the galaxy believe that nothing was there. The Free States published their findings. The galaxy went silent. Every civilization that had dismissed the data reconsidered. Every sensor array that had pointed at the zone and found nothing was recalibrated. Every assumption about humanity was re-examined. And slowly, one by one, the civilizations of the galaxy came to the same conclusion. Illusion. The humans had not been excluded from the Atlas. The humans had excluded themselves. They had looked at the galaxy, studied it, mapped it, understood it, and they had decided that they did not want to be part of it, not yet, not until they were ready, not until the galaxy was ready. They had built their civilization in hiding, developed their technology in secret, created a military force that dwarfed everything else in existence, and they had done it all while the rest of the galaxy looked at their planet and saw nothing worth noticing. The arrogance of the galaxy had been their greatest weapon. Everyone had assumed humanity was primitive because humanity wanted them to assume it. Everyone had ignored human space because humanity had made it ignorable. Everyone had looked at the exclusion zone and seen a blank spot on a map because humanity had drawn the blank spot themselves. Not to hide, or to test, to see if the galaxy would notice, would question, would wonder. For 400 years, the galaxy had failed that test. Until now, 6 months after the Free States published their findings, a transmission was received from the exclusion zone. It was not directed at any specific civilization. It was broadcast on all frequencies, all languages, all formats, the same mathematical foundation that every spacefaring species could decode. The transmission was brief. This is the United Earth Defense Authority. We have observed your recent activities regarding the region you call the exclusion zone. We note that several of your civilizations have independently verified our presence. We note that others continue to dispute it. This is acceptable. Belief is not required. The transmission paused. For 417 years, we have maintained our exclusion from your maps, your surveys, and your awareness. We did this not from fear, not from hostility, from observation. We wanted to understand the galaxy before we joined it. We wanted to know what kind of neighbors we would have. Another pause. We have completed our assessment. The results are mixed. Some of you are capable of wisdom. Most of you are capable of violence. All of you are capable of both. This is not a judgment. It is an observation. We are not different. The transmission paused again, longer this time. The exclusion zone will remain in effect for a period of time that we will determine. When we are ready, we will contact you formally. Not through probes, not through signals, in person. Until then, do not enter the zone. The Sorani learned what happens when you do. We would prefer not to repeat the lesson. A final pause. You spent centuries mapping the galaxy. You left our space blank because we asked the Velari to do so. Not because we are not on the map, because we are not ready to be found. That is changing, but it is not changed yet. The transmission ended. No identification codes, no return address. No negotiation framework, no invitation for dialogue. A statement, not a conversation. The galaxy received it in silence. On the abandoned mining station at coordinates null 7, Krenval played the transmission 17 times. He listened to every word, every pause, every inflection. He thought about the Velari, 417 years of mapping, the greatest work of cartography in history, and they had met a species that asked them to draw a blank space and they had obeyed, not because they were weak, because they understood. He thought about the Sorani, 70 warships, 400,000 soldiers gone in 4 minutes, not destroyed, captured, preserved, by a species that had decided it was done with killing. He thought about the humans, 300 years of radio leakage that everyone had dismissed as noise, 400 years of hidden construction, 12 million warships, a camouflage network spanning 800 light years, a plan that had begun before most modern civilizations existed. They had not hidden because they were weak. They had hidden because they were patient. And now the patience was ending. Krenval switched off the transmission. He stood. He walked to the station's viewport. He looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, beyond the edge of the exclusion zone, 12 million human warships waited in the dark. Silent, hidden, patient. Not forever. Just long enough. The galaxy had spent centuries mapping every star, every planet, every resource, every species. They had drawn their lines and filled their charts and called their atlas complete. But the humans had looked at all of it, and they had chosen to leave themselves blank. Not because the galaxy did not want them on the map, because the humans did not trust the galaxy with the truth. Not yet. This is Apex Chronicle. The blank space is not empty. We will see you in the next one.